I am Bill LaCoste. I'm the production director for Fallout 76, and we're here to talk about the Gleaming Depths and Ghoulification. So the Gleaming Depths is an enclave laboratory that was an old mining facility that they turned into this laboratory to do some very crazy experiments. Basically, trying to harness the power of ultracite. As you go through this raid, you'll have 5 different encounters that you go through as you're trying to make it your way towards the bottom. And each of those encounters has its own unique set of events and actions that are happening, and also just a different set of skills and strategies that are gonna have to be taken by your team to finish the whole raid.
We're dealing with 5 bosses here. What was that like for the team to approach not just designing one all-timer boss, but 5 of them?
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult process, but the thing was that they started prototyping this stuff super early. And so the point was to try to get to a point where we could all play test it, get feedback super early in the process, and then also get to PTS as soon as we could, because then that way we actually get from the players, especially players who are very min-maxed and are super hardcore players, you know, letting us know how this raid is coming along. And the feedback from Discord and from Reddit and everybody who did streams was just immaculate. Like they came in and were like, this is awesome, this is great. And the best part about some of the streams that we were watching live as they were going through it was that there wasn't a pain point where they were failing, you know, where they would come in and they would fail and it'd be like, oh, okay, I'm done with this. No, it was like, fail, and it's like, wait, why did we fail that? Oh, okay, I think I know what we're doing. And they kept going through it cycle by cycle by cycle. And by the end of the day, most of those groups had completed it. And it took a few hours for them to do it. And then they're gonna get faster and faster and faster as they go through again and again. Like I said, the best part about this was people were very excited about what we had done here. The raid mechanics are all different, and the level of just learning that had to be done by players was really good, so.
Now be honest, how big was your Machiavellian evil smile when players encountered the Stalker for the first time and realized, hang on, this thing can kill me in one hit?
Oh, amazing, because they would go around corners and all of a sudden the Stalker would be there, slash them, they'd be dead. They're like, I failed, you know. But again, you know, throughout this whole process, I can't stress enough how people would die and wipe, you know, do complete wipes like they would do normal raids, but just get right back into it and be like, okay, I think I figured something out. And then they'd go back in and continue executing, and it was great to see. Yeah, a lot of 4-star rewards, some armor, some weapons, obviously components that go into making it. But yeah, that's the big kind of cycle here for players to get into, is getting all the 4-star stuff.
Have you got a personal favorite you wouldn't mind sharing?
I don't have a favorite right now. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm kind of anxious for players to get in and actually see some of the drops that come in there. But we do have a really new, awesome Enclave power armor that comes with it, which you saw with the Squad Epsilon. Very similar. It's really cool.
Because obviously that's a reference potentially to Fallout 2, isn't it?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
possibly.
And what can you tell us about the final raid boss?
Ultracite Terror is probably one of the coolest things we've done. The size of it is massive, you know, within the world. And once you actually get into the game and start playing, and you get to that final boss, it does tower over you, and you're like, oh my god, what is happening here? And that's really cool, because it starts to spit venom and pools that actually stay on the platform or on the island that you're at. So you have to avoid the pools. Then the tail comes up, it hits the island starts to shrink. And that was one thing that people couldn't figure out. They're like, wait, why did we die? And then they started looking around, they go, wait, the island is shrinking. They're like, why is the island shrinking? And then they figured out it had to do with the tails. So that was kind of, again, one of the progressions where it was like, it was nice to see players actually just explore, figure it out, and not require this a massive amount of instruction. Some of the feedback we got early on was, they didn't even tell us how to do these things. It's like, because it doesn't need it. Like, it's so well designed, we thought, that players were going to see the cues that they were missing and be able to figure out immediately, and players did. My honest reaction to seeing some of the stuff, especially like right out the gate, was there were some players who got like, this is too difficult, I'm stopping playing. And I was like, relax, it's been 30 minutes. You're good. You'll get through this. Trust me, you'll be fine. But we needed that. We need something like that is challenging to players, and that was the best kind of response we got from some of those longtime min-max players like Angry Turtle. You know, it's like, oh my, this is actually a challenge. I can't actually solo this. It's like, yes, that is exactly what we were shooting for. These aren't just bullet sponges. They don't just have high DR, you know, or high resistances. Like, no, these are actually challenging puzzles that you were trying to figure out. And once you do figure them out, yeah, it goes fairly smoothly. So we have teams internally right now that can blast through the raid in 10 minutes, somewhere in there. So once players start getting a lot of the gear that they were actually looking for, some of the 4-star stuff too, they'll be able to do that too, and that's kind of the beauty of it.
But now let's move and talk about the ghoulification process.
The one question we get a lot of times is, did the TV show influence any of this? And there's a little bit, but we started thinking about this well before the TV show. I mean, players have wanted to play as a ghoul since, I don't know, 2015, 2016, in that time frame. But then even since launch of this game, we've always wanted to play as a ghoul. There was just no real time to really kind of drop that in. And also, we wanted to provide players an experience that was not just a reskin of human players that were then thrown into the world and they could do everything, not abiding by factions or anything like that. That was not the experience we wanted to give players. We wanted players to play as a ghoul and introduce new mechanics to it, like you see with Glow and you see with the Feral Meter, as well as new perks and new legendary perks. So as John mentioned, there's 30 perks overall, 2 legendaries, 28 normal perks that you'll be able to customize. And I get the question also sometimes of, what's your favorite perk? It's like, well, I don't have one yet because this is pre-alpha. You guys are seeing pre-alpha, like this stuff just got in. And so we're even ourselves are trying to define what these new loadouts are gonna be, because I played a bloody character for so long, I'm not gonna be able to do that now. So when I turn Ghoul, I'm gonna have to figure out what new kind of loadouts I want, what kind of weapons I want to go with. And all of this is just going to be a learning experience, I think, for everybody. There are some really cool mechanics, like John mentioned earlier, with some perks that actually allow you to build up your glow faster with the chems and do extra damage. You can use the glow to actually invoke other types of actions that do lots of amounts of damage, whether it's melee or ballistic or anything like that. So there's so much to the mechanics of just being a ghoul that we felt like this is what was going to give players the right experience.
Is there a downside to becoming a ghoul?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you let that feral meter run out, you basically lose accuracy on your weapons. You also become a little bit more of a glass cannon at that point. So you have lower health, but you do an extreme amount of melee damage. So there is a counter to that. So we'll see how often players kind of blur that line of going into feral on purpose in some cases, depending on whatever they're trying to attack or whatever engagement they're in, then filling that back up, and then basically use chems to do that process. It's almost like their version of bloodied in a way, because it's very glass cannon. You do a lot of damage, but you do have some drawbacks to it.
Excellent. What can you tell us more about the area in which you go and start this process?
Sure. So there's a couple of different areas that you get to go to. There's a Radiant Hills, which is the actual main camp that you'll actually find all the other ghouls that are kind of living in that area, and that's where you'll actually get the inhaler to basically turn into a ghoul at that point. So you'll actually go to Emmett Mountain as well, because you're taking Asher to get the irradiated ore that you need to actually create this inoculation. The area, it's kind of a secluded area up north. I guess it's northeast of Vault 79. Yeah, a little bit up there. So it's a really cool little area that we've got spec'd out for it, a really cool camp. And then you'll meet some other players along the way. Even some of our, Dave Ghoul is
amazing.
Yeah, in there, and Jess Ghoul as well. So yeah, so you get to see them in there and their outfits that they were actually wearing during the Fallout Day preview. Once you've turned into a ghoul, we allow you to go back to human. Part of that's for game reasons, but also because we realize people spend thousands of hours playing our game, and to lock them into a big choice such as that is not good for just the game in general, especially if they don't necessarily like it. Like, they may think it's cool, but they'd rather go back to their human character. We didn't want to lock that off. That was not something we were interested in introducing to players.
Go on, so. It might have been a bit funny though for a short time at least, but still.
A little bit, but yeah, not in the end, no.